The review just proceed there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Music of the Month review. Yeah, so I know I mentioned the other day that I wasn't really sure if I'd be able to get any videos done on the weekend. Well, my parents are out, so why not take the chance? So yeah, as always with Music of the Month, I review all the albums I listened to in the previous month, even if they didn't actually come out in that actual month, and review them and with a brand new graded system as well, which I added for when I was doing the months of April. The months of April, the music of April, the music of the month of April. You know what I mean. Anyway, let's do this. So we start off with Amon Amarth with their new album Berserker. I think it's their 13th or 14th album. They've been around a while. And it's the first album I've ever listened to by them, and I quite liked it. Really solid, just ballsy, heavy Viking metal. I really, really enjoyed it. Like, you know, good mix of power metal in there too. All in all, for a grade, I'm gonna give it a B plus. I quite enjoyed it. I haven't really listened to it a lot except for the one time, but I do want to listen to it again. So yeah, it's hard to hold anything against it, especially because I know about Amon Amarth's status as being a really good, sorry, let me sort my hair, as being a premier sort of band in that genre. Yeah. Next is Bad Religion with Age of Unreason, my first Bad Religion album. Um, really, really good. Like, much like Amon Amarth are a seminal Viking metal band, Bad Religion are a seminal American punk band, and I thought this was pretty solid. I will also give this one a B plus. I feel like some of the songs were a bit too short, in my opinion, but it was still a good album, and the messages they had to say, um, especially with the current political climate, not just for America, but for most like places in general, it was very forward thinking. I like how they handled it. So yeah, really, really good. Next is Bad Flower with OK I'm Sick, the first album on this list to have not come out in May, instead it came out in February. Um, I thought it was a pretty solid debut. I just wish that they got a little bit crazy with what they could do, because that's when they sounded a bit more interesting to me. Like, the lyrics are actually pretty solid. I will give a shout out to really, really good lyrics. Very dark in a way. Musicianship is also quite good. I just wanted to be a bit heavier and not sound as polished as it did. I feel like this album could have benefited more if it sounded a bit more raw. But all in all, I'm going to give this a B. I thought it was pretty consistent. I liked what I got to hear out of it. I don't really have anything against it, so there you go. Next is another album that didn't come out in May. Instead, it came out in April, and I just barely missed it. Koki the Clown with Your Welcome. For those not familiar with Koki the Clown, he is the alter ego of Fat Mike, who's the lead singer of American punk band NoFX. And this is basically sort of like an alter ego for Fat Mike, as I just mentioned. Basically talking about his life, but while dressed up as a sad clown. And this album is very depressing. It's not the sort of thing I would expect to hear from Fat Mike, who leads such a fast-paced and happy-sounding band as NoFX, but I actually weirdly enjoyed it. Very on the nose, but it sort of needed to be. It's a weird one to pin down, but it ultimately had a lot of really good stories to tell. So I think I'm gonna give this one a a B minus maybe. It revels quite a bit in its ugliness in a way, and I do like that it's a lot. It's quite open and honest about that. So yeah, I thought it was some pretty decent stuff. Next is Defeater with their self-titled album, their first one in almost 4 years after Abandoned in 2015. This album, because all Defeater albums are from the perspective of a different character, and I think a lot of people really wanted this one to be from the perspective of the mother. This one is actually from the perspective of a bookie who had met all the characters at one point or another. And I thought it was done interestingly enough. It ends, and, well, it is a bleak album because Defeater are a very bleak band. I like the production on display, even if I do understand why some people don't like what Will Yip does with the vocals. I thought it made him sound pretty good, you know? I don't really have anything against it. I think I'm going to give this album B+, plus, mostly just because, I'll bump it up to an A- minus actually, because I just really like Defeater, so. Yeah, I thought this was pretty good. One of the few I'd recommend you listen to. Not that everything I made was bad, but this is one I would recommend you go and find out. Next is Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes with End of Suffering, my first Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes album. And so I wasn't a super big fan of this one. For one thing, the album cover is just it's just a bunch of colors. Like it's just like blue sort of fading down through green, through yellow, through orange. And I don't really know why. And the album itself was just it wasn't bad, but it's not something I immediately wanted to listen to again after I'd heard it. Especially from Frank Carter, who I know is a really good singer. This might be my first album from him and the Rattlesnakes, but I do want to go back and listen to their other stuff. And I feel like they can do better than this because I've heard some of the other stuff they've done that's not in this album. So I don't know, it just felt a bit deflated. I'm gonna give it a C plus because I feel like a C is a bit too harsh for it. C plus. I wish I could have liked this one more. I don't know, it's just not one I really see myself going back to listen to. Next, though, is one I super duper enjoyed. A plus immediately. The Heavy with Sons, which is their fifth album. I absolutely love this one. I think of all the albums in May, this is the one I've not been able to stop listening to. I've probably listened to this album more in May than any other that's come out. I absolutely super duper enjoyed it. One of the albums that came out in May that I recommend you immediately take out along with Defeater and Amon Amarth, and maybe one we'll get into soon. I'm not really sure, but yeah, absolutely thought this was really, really enjoyable, really fun, really soulful. Definitely worth taking out. So do that. Next is one that took me by surprise, and we'll get to why that surprise happened a little bit later when I talk about the last album because it's alphabetical order. But a band called Model Zero with a self-titled debut. Yeah, I don't know. Like last night, I was listening to the last album I knew was coming out in May, and then when I went back to the YouTube homepage, I saw this was posted, and I was like, I've never even heard of these guys, but it's recommended to me, and because of the music I listen to, I'll give it a whirl. And I was quite taken by it. Actually, hang on, I just realised I forgot to put an album on here. I think I forgot to put an album on the on the list that I know to listen to. But yeah, back to Model Zero very briefly. I thought it was really good, really, really solid. I'm going to give it a B. I definitely see the potential on display, and I really hope that more stuff is available to us soon from the guys. The album I missed. I don't know why I forgot to put it on the list. Honeyblood in Plain Sight, my first Honeyblood album, and a lot of people really didn't like this one. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, a lot of people weren't super fans of it. I will agree that some of the production was a bit odd, but that's only near the beginning of the album. As you keep going through it, you realize that it's still really, really solid and super enjoyable. So yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't really have anything against the production side of it. Um, well, for the most part, I thought this album was pretty good. I'm going to give it a B minus. It wasn't great, but it's definitely nowhere near as bad as people make it out to be. I, I thought it was pretty decent. So yeah, I'm going to give it a solid B straight in the middle. Next is Moontooth with Crux, my last album on this list to not have come out in May but have come out in March instead. This is really like if you like your technical metal, then this is definitely an album for you. I quite enjoyed it, especially with the mixture of some rock flavors as well. There was some really interesting production things going on, and if you like the weirdest styles of metal, then yeah, this is definitely something you should seek out. I'm gonna give it I'm also gonna give this one a B. I thought it was pretty good. Not another one I would immediately jump back to listening to, but I didn't hate it. I thought what we got was pretty good. So yeah, pretty decent. Next is a band called Nuts with their third album called Three, and I think that this is not the one I was on about, by the way, earlier when I was talking about Model Zero. But I do think that this album is why YouTube recommended Model Zero to me, because they do sort of sound similar, but not as a female-fronted thing. Um, but I actually like Model Zero's one a bit more. Knots' 3 was, I don't know, like, I think Knots' 3 album was a bit longer, but it didn't feel like it did as much, whereas Model Zero's album was 27 minutes. I think like Knots has it beat by like a factor of 7 or 8 minutes. But Model Zero got more done. Knots sort of seemed to meander a little bit, for my opinion. Still didn't hate the album though. I thought it was pretty good. Uh, I'm gonna give it a B minus. I wasn't a super huge fan of it. I feel like more could have been done with what we got, but what we did get was still pretty good, so can't complain. Next is Rammstein with Rammstein. their 6th, 7th album, my first Rammstein album. Because, it's the first one in 10 years, and I think a lot of people wanted to listen to it, and a lot of people would have gotten mad if I didn't talk about it, so there you go. All in all, I give this one a B+. I just thought it was enjoyable. It's, your typical Rammstein fare. It's what they're known for doing. Yeah, can't really fault it. I mean, it's just their style. It's what we've gotten used to over time. Sounds really good. Sounds really solid. Just really consistent. Rammstein are a very consistent band, so can't really fault that. And finally, the last album I listened to in May was Texas Hippie Coalition with Heinz the Settle. This is the one I was on about earlier when I was talking about Model Zero. Because I was thinking like last night, oh, this is the last album I have to listen to. Then I'll be done. Then I went back to the YouTube homepage and found the Model Zero one. But yeah, Texas Hippie Coalition Behind the Saddle. It's. I think it's because I've listened to a few Texas Hippie Coalition albums by this point, but it sounds the same as a lot of the other stuff they've done. And for an album that took 3 years as opposed to the usual 2-year gap they take, I wanted them to try something different, and they didn't. They just seem to have really bad balancing issues. I don't know. I want to like this album more. I'm gonna also give this one a C. I'm gonna give this one a C plus as well. I wasn't a super huge fan of it. It's just sort of the typical Texas Hippie Coalition fare. It's nothing new. It's nothing you haven't heard if you've already listened to a Texas Hippie Coalition song. Basically, I don't know. There was a lot more that needed to be done with it, and those chances weren't really taken. So, but all in all, yeah, that's about it for the albums of May. Albums I would absolutely recommend are Defeater, The Heavy, definitely The Heavy. Maybe Bad Flowers 1. Nah, I'll take away Bad Flowers 1. Nah, I don't really know. Yeah, fuck it, that can be on there. Bad Religion's Edge of Reason, definitely, and Anonymous Berserker also definitely. But the main two are definitely Defeater and The Heavy. In fact, I'll bump Defeater's one up to an A-. I feel like they deserve a little bit more. Yeah. All in all, May was mostly mixed. It was mostly mixed to positive with emphasis on the positive, and I always look for that. And I thought what we got at the end of the month was ultimately still pretty solid stuff. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. The albums of 2019 are shaping up to be a lot more interesting. So, I'll see you all probably Monday for next Friday Night Review. And there is a few albums in June that I'm quite looking forward to. And there's probably going to be more that have been released in previous months that I haven't heard because I completely missed them. So, I'll see you all for whatever my next video winds up being. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye. Bye.